Piyush, I did not get your question. At what time? What do you mean? Oh, my flight is at 8:45 from Delhi. If one of you is also going there, we can meet on the airport, maybe. Okay. Quickly sharing my screen. Okay. And the browser is here. This one. Rahul, yeah, what to do? Have to complete your course also, na? And because of New Year and Christmas, we missed one class. So just wanted to cover that. Anyway, can you guys see my screen? We'll be quick, don't worry. Is the code screen visible for everyone? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so what had we talked about in the last class, right? So a quick revision of that first. So guys, we realized one is nested functions. I mean, you can call nested basically means when one thing is inside another thing, right? So we talked about nested function, wherein there was this function which was called add number to number, right? And instead of returning a regular value, it was returning another function, right? Do you guys remember this one? Higher order function is also similar. Higher order functions can be defined in two ways. Either they take in a function, right? Or return a function, or both. Okay? Both things they can do, right? So here what we've done is, this guy is a higher order function, definitely. It's also a nested function because there is a function inside function. And we'll talk about the third thing, which is called closure, right after this. Okay? So what we have here, guys, is a function which is called add number to number. It is returning another function, right? Okay. Now, what we did then is we wrote a simplified version of it. And that's where we realized the true power of arrow functions. So arrow functions here are allowing us to write the same thing in a very simplified format, right? Does everyone understand how this and this is same? Ayush, Vidyasagar, do you guys understand this? This one-liner is the same as these 4 lines. Everyone understands this, right? Anyone, किसी को कोई doubt है? I can explain it again. Nahi? Okay, good. Okay, so here what is happening is we have something called as num1, and it's so to the first function we pass num1, it then returns a function. Okay, and to that function you can pass the other number, which is num2, and then it will just return the sum of those two numbers. Okay. So guys, building on top of this logic, what we did is we created 3 other functions. Okay. First one was called add 1 to number, second was add 2 to number, and third was add 3 to number. Okay. In add 1 to number, we had something like add number to number, and we passed 1 to it, right? So what will it have returned us, guys? It will have returned us this another function in which num1 ka value was already set to 1, correct? So now whatever value you pass to this guy, add 1 to number 9, the answer is going to be 10. Okay. Because by doing this, what we have done is हमने num1 को fix कर दिया. So num1 is now fixed, right? Similarly for add num2, add 3 to number, and similarly for add 2 to number, both of these. Yes, Rahul, you should be able to understand. Just if you're able to understand this much, बाकी सब समझ में आ जाएगा. Are you able to understand this much, Rahul? Perfect. Then we are almost done, Rahul. Sir, I initialize input in the main function, then how it took in online function. Sirjul, you have to ask your question better. I'm not able to understand. Aap kya bol rahe ho? If you want me to unmute you, I can do that. Okay. Go ahead, Sirjul. Unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, if I initialize a value on the name on function or main
Which one?
function, how
Which one are you saying, Sirjul? Again, line batao.
line 570.
Okay, line 570. Okay.
This is the parent function. Then if I put a in input, then how it look like on the const add number to at least 575 functions, or how to initialize the 575 function express. Yes, sir.
Sirjul, I'm still not able to understand your question. Just be on unmute, okay? So what are we saying? We are saying add number to number. If we call this guy, right? If we call this, sorry, not this one. If we call this guy with, let's say, some value, let's say call it with 10, right? Calling this, what will be the result? Can you tell me once? No, Rahul, galat mat bolo yaar, baar Rahul. Sirjul, are you there? Sirjul, be on unmute, na?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what this will return, Sirjul?
Sir, function returning a function.
Okay, just be with me, okay? Rahul, abhi focus karna since you were absent yesterday. What this will return me? This will return me a function, right? And what is the nature of this function? The nature of this function is such that isme num1 ka value is already set, correct?
Yes, sir.
Hai na? So basically 10 is already set. So now whatever this guy returned to you, right? So this guy returned a function, and we know that we can call functions like this. Okay. And now whatever value we call it with, let's say we call it with 12, for example, right? Then what will be the result, Sirjul?
22, sir.
22, correct? So the point that we are trying to make is very simple. Calling this returns a function. Okay, that function can be called with anything. Then the second thing that we did is I talked about the concept of function factories. Okay, and what is that? So I created a function factory which is called add one to number. Okay, उसमें मैंने क्या किया Srijul? I have passed 1 to this guy, right? So basically this guy add 1 to number is now a new function for us जिसमें हम जो भी value pass करेंगे it will just add 1 to it.
Yes,
You
sir.
understand this?
Yes, sir.
That's all you need to know. Any doubts now?
सर हम बोल रहे सर कॉन्स्ट जो एक लाइन का जो फंक्शन बनाया आपने हाँ तो इसमें सर अगर हम ग्लोबल वेरिएबल इनिशियलाइज करें ऑन द सेकंड इनर फंक्शन देन हाउ इट विल बी इनिशियलाइज
नहीं मतलब इसमें कौन सा वाला कह रहे हो आप?
सर इसमें अगर हम मतलब सर कोई इनपुट इनिशियलाइज करें
इनिशियलाइज करते हैं आप क्वेश्चन सही नहीं पूछ रहे ना?
अच्छा सर
नहीं आप मेरी बात सुनो. See, the only thing that I'm saying is this thing is exactly equivalent of this thing.
Yes, sir. But I just try to say you, if I initialize a variable like sir 571 में जाइए एक बार.
Okay. बताओ.
हाँ सर इसके ऊपर एक लाइन क्रिएट कीजिए.
Okay.
If I put here a local variable.
ऐसे?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then how to do in this 576 function?
Achha, okay. You can't do that, right? Why can't you do that? Because it's a one-line function. So what if you want to do that, Sirjul, you will have to do something like this. आपको इसको multi-line बनाना पड़ेगा. And then return this function. Something like this. Now they're equivalent.
Okay, sir.
Clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
So we can only do this thing then it's one liner, because one liner के केस में क्या होता है यार कि there is no explicit need to say return, right? Whatever you write in front of it is automatically returned. But if, of course, if you wanted to create something inside this, a new variable, a new local variable to this function, then of course you'll have to make it a multi-line function. Add one to number is basically no. So again, what is functional expression? This is definitely a functional expression, right? Which is, it's a functional expression. Why is it a functional expression? Because it is a value, it is a variable to which we are assigning a function, right? अब वो function कैसे आया is a different story, right? वो function, we know how it's coming. We are calling this, and this guy is returning a function. That's pretty much it. Yes, Rahul, for multi-line functions, I mean, of course, right? That's why curly braces are made. So you have the luxury of not using curly braces when you don't have when you don't have multi-lines, right? When you have a single line, you can just write it like this. Is this clear to everyone, folks? यहाँ तक? राहुल, आपको clear है? आप late आए थे? Perfect. Lexical scope क्या होता है? Whatever is between these brackets, Rahul 2, that is lexical scope. जो भी इन brackets के बीच में होता है उसको lexical scope कहते हैं. So the lexical scope of add number to number function is between this bracket 571 to 575. The lexical scope of this function is between this bracket and this bracket, here and here. Okay, समझ में आ गया lexical scope? Function inside function से कोई लेना देना नहीं है lexical scope का. Lexical scope is a scope which is demarcated by curly brackets opening and curly brackets closing. Yes, block scope is same as lexical scope. There is no difference. For right now, there is no difference. Pratibha, I cannot answer that question because I've already taught you what arrow functions are. आप ये नहीं पूछ सकते अभी. Please go and read the last one of the lectures where we have talked about arrow functions. We've covered this too many times now. में है वो lexical scope है. जो curly braces में है वो lexical scope है. जब आप if create करते हैं इस तरीके से, this is also lexical scope. Variables like let/const, which are declared here, have life only inside this, right? And that's what lexical scope or block scope is. The other kind of scope is functional scope. In JavaScript, there are two scopes: lexical, या फिर block. The other one is functional scope. Where is functionally scoped, let const or block/lexical scope. Is this clear? Very easy concept, covered before. सबको clear है ना guys? आगे चलो. Okay. Then what we started talking about yesterday is we talked about closures, right? And how we define closures, guys. I'll again read from the official definition because it's very important in this case. Let me just open that. Yes. So guys, a closure is a combination of a function and the lexical environment within which the function was created. Okay? This environment can consist of local variables that were in scope when the closure was created. Okay? बहुत simple सी बात मैंने बोली. Let me explain it again. क्या बोला मैंने? Let's understand this. I said, what did I say? A closure is the combination of a function and its lexical environment in which in the lexical scope जहाँ पे function create हुआ था. So everyone, what is the lexical scope of this function जहाँ पे create हुआ? Can you tell me the lines जहाँ पे इसका lexical scope start हो रहा है and end हो रहा है? Yes, Amit gave the right answer. No, it's 598 where this bracket starts from to 603. No, so guys, two things. अभी जो आप लोग बोल रहे हो, शिवांश, Rahul, probably you are thinking the scope of this function. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying इस ये function कौन से lexical scope में create हुआ है? कौन से में create हुआ है? It starts at 598 and it ends at 603. This line to this line. सबको समझ में आता है ये? Akash, Mayank, Tarun, Subkar, everyone, this is clear for us? Perfect. Okay, so the lexical scope. Okay, so again, what is a closure? Let me repeat it once again. A closure is the combination of a function and the lexical environment within which the function was created. Very simple. Does everyone know ab closure kya hota hai, guys? Okay, what is the special property of closure? Let's understand that. The property of closure is that, let's say, just look at this example, है ना? तो यहाँ पे we had something called as say hello, right, guys? So what happens when I call say hello? Can anyone tell me? When I call say hello, what does it return me? सही बोलना सब लोग, please. अरे यार राहुल, बार बार गलती करते हो यार आप, सेम चीज की. Okay, everyone just write your answers. What will say hello return? सब लोग आंसर लिखो अपना. निहाल absolutely wrong. मैं नाइस. किरण बहुत गलत बोल रहे हो यार, अनडिफाइंड भी नहीं है, गलत. साई गलत. सरजुल परफेक्ट. प्रियंका परफेक्ट. तरुण नाइस. शुभम को तो सब आता है यार. अंकित भाई क्या आंसर दे रहे हो यार? ओके, सो पता नहीं गाइस व्हाई द कंफ्यूजन इज स्टिल देयर व्हेन आई एम प्रतिभा परफेक्ट. व्हेन आई एम कॉलिंग से हेलो, आपको दिख नहीं रहा? व्हाट इज इट रिटर्निंग? It's returning a function, right? So what does say hello return? It returns a function again. It returns a function, right? Are we clear with this or not? Rahul, clear hai ya nahi bhai? So say hello is basically returning a function, correct? Sai, why are you making a mistake, Sai, every time, yaar? Okay, so say hello is returning a function, okay? Now the good thing about this, or the weird thing about this, is that when you're looking on this one, right, हमें पता है that when we created a variable using name, so let name is equal to Amit, its scope was inside these curly brackets, right? Because let is a variable, let is a lexically scoped variable, so uska scope is only between say hello, right? But guys, when you do this, right, this closure, because this forms a closure, it's going to remember जो मेरी environment का variable था. So इसकी lexical environment का variable था Amit. So it's going to remember that, hey, the name is Amit, right? So in a way, that name is set for this, is the point I'm trying to make. And when you call it like this, what is going to be the answer? Everyone? Hello Amit. Perfect. सबको समझ में आता है ये? सबको समझ में आ रहा है guys? Perfect. If you understand that it's going to give hello Amit, and the second fact that it has access to this name, then we've already come a long way in JavaScript. सबको समझ में आ रहा है guys? Come on guys, say yes. Okay. Good. Very nice. Okay, so this is going to return hello Amit, right? And why? And the brilliant thing here is this returned a function. We call that function. It's giving us hello name. Now the wonderful thing about this is you are able to access this variable, which was scoped, which was lexically scoped, only inside say hello, and आप उसको बाहर भी use कर पा रहे हो. This is the power of closures. How this is very powerful, we'll understand as we move deeper into JavaScript. But are we absolutely clear till here, guys? Awesome. Wonderful. Love it. Okay, that's it. That's all about closures, guys. Super clear, sabko? Closure? Okay, so happy because I was thinking that closures is going to take a lot of time. People will not understand this, but just made my day. Wonderful, guys. Love it. Okay, so now we know what closures are. Okay. Okay, what can we do now? Let me just check what is the next topic in our syllabus. Okay, so by using closures, we can make local scope into global scope. Don't put it like that. it's like you are able to use the variables which were scoped for this function only inside this function. You can use them outside also. So when you say local and global scope, it becomes a tricky thing to say in an interview. So don't use those words. Okay? Always use very simple words. A closure is a function which is enclosed inside another function having access to its lexical environment. That's it. Sirf itna bolo. Akash, perfect definition, just call it lexical environment. Outer function variable mat bolo. And your interviewer is going to love it. Okay? Awesome. Okay, so now let's see what you have next in syllabus. So now we've done lexical environment closures, we've done closures, we've done objects. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to talk a bit about few other concepts in JavaScript, like the math, the string, and the date. These are the concepts that I want to cover for today. And they will, of course, empower you a lot to play with dates in JavaScript, which is sort of an important thing. Okay, so how do we do this? We are going to start with them directly. Okay, but before we do that, just take some time. Okay, this is what I want all of you guys to do. Just take 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and please type this out for yourself in your computer and just understand this. Or take 2-3 minutes rather, but just type this out or understand this. I just want you to up until this point, guys. Let me just zoom out. Wonderful if you've done it, nothing like it, but I'll just take 2-3 minutes also for everyone to complete this. Just type it out, just write the code for yourself. So 329, 332 is when we start again. Take your time. Okay, just 1 more minute then. Take 1 more minute, guys. Understand this. If you have any doubts, just think about it or puch lo abhi ke abhi. Nice. Okay. So lexical means, lexical ka matlab hota hai anything which is enclosed between these brackets is called a lexical, right? So this guy and this guy, they form a lexical scope. That's how we call it. Lexical by definition is dictionary, right? So lexical or block scope is scoped between any two curly braces. So this is forming one lexical scope. This is forming another lexical scope. Any other doubts before we move to the next concepts? No? Let's move. Say move if everyone is okay. Say move. M-O-V-E. Type it out. Let's move. Okay. So now another important set of concepts. Okay. It's called math, right? So guys, typically we have this need of performing a lot of mathematical calculations on JavaScript. Why is that required? It's required, for example, let's say you're trying to draw a circle, right, in JavaScript. And when I say trying to draw a circle, of course, you will be drawing it on HTML. Right? So basically, let's say we had this page and we want to rotate this item wala dabba in a circle, right? So these are mathematical operations in the sense, what we are essentially going to do is we'll take sine theta of that angle and just increase theta, and then it will just form that trajectory, right? So this is one example, but of course, calculating square roots, getting a random value are very, very common use cases for any programming languages, right? And this is what the math library in JavaScript is about, right? So how it works is what we are trying to understand today. We are going to try to understand, right? So guys, we've understood one thing, that, hey, there is a concept of objects, right? And what are objects? Objects have properties, right? And objects can have two types of properties, okay? If you remember, right? There are properties which are basically values which can be used to define an object, right? And the other are behavior. Wonderful, Mayank. Amazing that you remembered it. We had talked about car, right? So the properties of car can be color, shape, size, weight, whatever, right? And the behaviors of a car can be drive, stop, brake, and many, many more, right? So using these two things, you can define anything, right? So this phone, this bottle, whatever, there can be some properties about this, right? You can talk about its shape, size, weight, whatever, right? And of course, you can then talk about fill, which will be used to fill this bottle. My bad. Okay, so that's about an object, right? So the JavaScript library, the JavaScript automatically provides us with a math object, right? And how do we access it? We access it using math keyword, right? So let's just try to understand it. I'll go here, right? And when I type capital MATH, right? And I just press enter. So it's showing me the math object, guys, automatically without me doing anything. And if you open it, hey, there are a lot of properties here, okay? And then there are lots and lots of behaviors or functions here, right? And some of these you might understand, others you might not, right? So ABS is for getting the absolute value, A sign is getting the arc sign or sine inverse, ceil is for getting the ceiling, cosine function, exponential function, many, many, many things, right? Logarithm, max, min, power, whatever, right? So this is what the math library is about, right? So the way this works is, let's say I want to use one of the constant values, okay? So let's say I want to get the value of pi, right? So what I can do is I can say math.pi, okay, capital Pi. Does everyone recognize this number? Guys, do you know what pi is? Right? Everyone knows what pi is, right? Okay, at least most of us know what pi is, right? So getting the value of pi is like this. Getting the value of e, which is again a mathematical constant, you can say math.e, right? And this is basically the square root of 2, some common constants, right? Right. So basically, these are the constant values which you can get, right? Constant values are anyway not very useful to us, but the methods are very useful to us. Okay. So let me talk about a few methods here. Okay. So this constants, hash properties, math and behaviors, slash functions. And then we are going to talk about these functions, like we talked about array functions and whatever, right? So the first function that we are going to do is it's called round, okay? Because round is very important. Round. Okay. So how does round work? It just rounds off a number. Okay. So I say math.round, and let's say I write 4.5 here. The answer is 5. When I write 4.4 here, the answer is 4. Right? So math.round just rounds off. Right? Everyone knows about it. rounds off. Second is seal, right? Sealing function, math.seal. Computes sealing decimal. Can anyone tell me what is sealing? What is the sealing of 4.6? 5. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so math.seal, we're going to turn 5, right? So again, math.seal, very, very simple. Similarly, as there is ceiling, there is floor also. Okay, floor. Okay, and again, what is floor of 4.6? It's 4, right? So basically, it's going to take the left decimal value, and in the case of ceiling, it's going to take the right real number value, not the real number, whole number value. Okay, so math.floor, math.ceiling, very, very simple. Then there is something called as trunk. Okay, and of course, this some of you might not know. What is math.trunk? Anyone? What is math.trunk? Anyone? No one knows? Correct, Amit. Amit is the closest. Right? So what does math.trunk do? Returns the integer part, very simply, right? So math.trunk of, let's say, 3.7 will give you 3, right? And if we had done math.floor of this guy, that will also return 3, right? And if we do math.round of this guy, that's also going to return 4, right? So one is to eliminate the decimal part. Okay, I'll just write that here. Part portion. Trunk is also clear. Okay, so now we know round, we know seal. Okay, by the way, how will negative number seal work? So let's say if I say math, what will be the seal of minus 4.5? Anyone? Amit says 4. Anyone else has an answer? It's minus 4. It's not minus 5, remember, guys. Minus 4 is bigger than minus 5. Remember that, right? So seal always gives you the value on the right side of the number line. Okay, minus 5 lies on the left side of the number line. Just a simple concept. Anyway, trunk we already know about, right? Similarly, there is this concept of getting to know the sign of a number. Okay, so it's called math sign. Okay, so if you give it minus 4, it gives minus 1. If you give it 4, it gives 1. Okay, so returns either minus 1 or plus 1, right? So minus 1 or 1 depending on sign, negative or positive number. Sign is also clear. Very, very simple again. Okay, now a slightly more mathematical concept is about raising to the power. Okay, so how can you compute, let's say, 4 raised to the power 5? Okay, so for that we have a function which is called math.pow. Okay, and here you can say 4, 5, and it's going to raise 4 to the 5th power. Okay, works on negative numbers also, right? And another thing to note, it has the capability of computing decimals also, right? So anyway, not very important. Okay. And just for your knowledge, guys, so math.seal 4.6 is 5, math.trunk 4.6 is 4. Rahul, galat bola na apne. Math.trunk 4.6 is 4, not 5. Trunc removes everything after the decimal. Ceal takes the next number. Of course not, it's not the same. It's not the same, guys. Okay. Trunc removes decimal. Ceal takes the next number. Yes. So for a particular case, maybe they give the same value, but that's not how they work, right? अरे बिल्कुल भी नहीं अजरुद्दीन, क्या बोल रहे हो यार? फ्लोर का क्या काम होता है? ओके, समझो. फ्लोर का क्या काम होता है? The job of floor is to take the integer just to the left. Okay, just to take that integer, right? And trunc का क्या मतलब है? Decimal point हटा देना. Maybe the value that you get is same. In some cases, it is going to be the same, right? But that's not how you should think about it, right? The way you should think about it is how it is working. Otherwise, you'll get wrong answers. Math.ceal 4.4 क्या देगा? It will give you 5. Try it out. Gives you 5. Ceal का मतलब होता है top. ठीक है? Ceal is ceiling, floor is floor. Right? So after that decimal, what is the closest value? What is the closest whole number value? It will give you that. What is the closest floor value? It will give you that. Floor down, ceal up, trunc, remove the decimal. Is this clear, everyone? I'm teaching math, yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we know POW also. Okay, one thing for your knowledge, which very few people, okay, shall I tell you something which very few people know about JavaScript? If everyone says yes, I'll teach you. ठीक है, सब yes बोलो तभी बताऊंगा. Okay, I like the excitement. Okay, so instead of using math.pow, there is another operator in JavaScript which is called star star, right? So 4 star star 5 gives you 1024 also. So math.pow and star star operator, they do the exact same thing. Cool fact. Works exactly like star operator. नहीं बताया था, but most of you did not remember it. Otherwise, you should have already told me, right? Yes, I remember. I've told it already. It's there when I taught you the multiplication operator. Here. Good if you guys remembered it, but math.pow is doing the same thing. Okay, perfect. Okay, what next? What next? Square root. I mean, math.sqrt it's called. Okay. Whenever you say 5, 4, it gives you 2. When you say 5, it gives you this. So a common use case, guys, is let's say I wanted to find the square root of a number and remove the decimal part of it, right? So you can say something like math.floor or math.trunc, math.sqrt, right? So what is happening here? Math.sqrt ka jo result mila, we are feeding to the trunc function and it's just removing the decimal part of it. Got it? I mean, round in this case makes more sense. That will give you slightly more accurate values, right? Okay, perfect. SQRT. Square root function. Okay. Similarly, another important one is called abs or absolute value. Can anyone tell me what is absolute value in mathematics? Anyone? Absolute value क्या होता है guys in maths? If it's a negative number, then it returns a positive number. If it's a positive number, it does not change it, right? So let's say math.abs ka 5 ka answer will be 5. Math.abs minus 5 ka answer is plus 5, right? So basically the way it works is, yes, like Amit says it just adds the mathematical modulus, right? Or mod operator in maths, but I don't want you to confuse it with this thing, right? ABS is for getting the absolute value, right? Again, very, very common. बहुत सारी जगहों पे use होता है, guys. When you're trying to compute the magnitude of an image that you have just fetched from the internet, you will be using this operator and many, many other things, okay? Apps for absolute value. Okay. What else? What else? Okay, another important, two of the very important ones, math.min. Okay, math.min and math.max. Just remember these ones, how they work. Math.min, what does it take, guys? It takes arguments, okay? So you can pass it any number of arguments and it will find the minimum value out of them. So let's say you pass it 1, 2, 3, 0. So it's going to give you a 0 because that was the minimum value. If you give it -1 here, it's going to give you -1 because -1 is the least value, right? So very, very peculiar. Please look at it very carefully. Of all the elements that you pass to it, right, as arguments, right? So this is a very weird thing. In this function, you can pass any number of arguments, okay? And what it will do is it will give you the least value of that argument, math.min. Does math.min work for decimal also? Let's try it out. 0.5. Yes, it does, Priyanka. Did everyone understand that? They are given as arguments to this function. Okay, very important. Okay, takes numbers as arguments. Similarly, math.max. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maximum value. If you give 5.1 after that, 5.1 would be the answer. Very similar to math.min. Okay, so you typically use these concepts to get minimum and maximum out of arrays, right? How do we do that? I'll just cover that in the next class. Once we understand how can we split this thing, these arguments into arrays and vice versa. Don't listen to whatever I just said. Bhul jao. Okay, now. Another important concept on which we'll have a question also is called math.random. Okay, so guys, as the name suggests, right, whenever you call this, it gives you a random value. It gives you a random value between 0 and 1, right? 0 can be included, but 1 will not be included. It will give you a random long integer between these values. Okay, so if I call it again, sum of the value, if I call it again, sum of the value, sum of the value, sum of the value, each time you call it, it gives you a random number. Okay, everyone understood this? Why kya hota hai, Sunny? It's a function in JavaScript. What is why about this? Use of, yes, that's what I'm coming to. Use of this is what I'm coming to. Okay, if I tell you that, Amit, we'll have to go into a lot of deep mathematics and cryptology, which is really out of the scope of this class. Sure. Okay. कुछ भी नहीं बोला प्रतिभा मैंने. Whenever you call this guy math.random as a function, it returns a random decimal between 0 and 1. 0 is included, 1 is not included. Random value each time. So if you run it 10 times, it will give you 10 different numbers. So if I create a loop out of this, I want a random array. Okay, I'm just going to say random dot push. Inside this, I'm going to call math dot random. So what will this loop do, guys? What will this loop do? Anyone? 10 random values inside my random array. Got it? So I took 10 different random values and I put them inside my array. Okay, now I have a question for everyone. Okay, I'll just write that question here also after defining this. Zero and one. Okay, the question is this. Okay, I want you to create a function, okay, which does this. Create a function which returns a random value between A and B, right? And what is A and B? So guys, this function is going to look like this. Function get random takes two arguments. First argument is A, the second argument is B, right? And basically it should return me a random value between A and B. So let's just take an example. Let's say I call this function with get random between let's say 1, 100. Okay. What it should do, guys, it should give me a value between it can give me 2, it can give me 5, it can give me 77, 76, 62, whatever. But the value should be between 1 and 100. Right? This is the question. बताओ भाई कौन बता सकता है डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स अरे वाह शिवम 2 minutes और ले लो because I think you can get wrong with this. Just take 2 more minutes. Okay, whoever, okay, it's 3:54 right now. At 3:56 let's talk again and let's see who has an answer. ठीक है? बिल्कुल गलत है प्रियंका, कुछ भी रैंडम बातें मत करो प्लीज. Take 2. Okay, now it's 3:55. We'll start talking at 3:57. Until that, just think. 2 more minutes. Get question is again, get random between is a function which takes two numbers A and B. What it has to do is it has to return a random number between two. So if I call get random between, I pass it 1, 100, this should return me one random number between 1 and 100. It could be 67, 54, 32, whatever, right? 357. Until that, I'm paused. Okay, guys, I'm back. Who has an answer? अशोक बिल्कुल गलत है. Makes zero sense. आपको पता है मैथ डॉट रैंडम रिटर्न्स द डेसिमल नंबर. तो इसमें ए और बी का फैक्टर है कहाँ पे, पहले ये बताओ अशोक. राहुल इज क्लोज. राहुल नॉट राहुल उपाध्याय इज क्लोज. राहुल वर्मा वेरी बैड आंसर. आपको पता है मैथ डॉट रैंडम गिव्स अ डेसिमल नंबर. ARR डॉट पुश में अगर आपने 100 टाइम्स एक रैंडम डेसिमल पुश कर दिया, हाउ इज दैट सॉल्विंग दिस? गाइस प्लीज सोच के बोलो, थिंक थ्रू. Azruddin, good attempt, but does not make sense. कोई तो बताओ यार. अमित, कुछ सोचा? वेरी क्लोज मिलिंद, वेरी नाइस वन. एब्सोल्युटली रॉन्ग पल्लवी, क्या कर रहे हो यार? आपको ये थोड़ी ना बोला है कि ए और बी के बीच में सारे नंबर्स पुश कर दो. Close enough, Rahul. Close enough. Sachin, good thought. Okay, let me explain it. Okay. Yeah. Math.random. What does it give? When I say math.random, what does it give? It gives a random decimal, right? It gives a random decimal, correct? Let's say I multiply this guy with some value, right? So let's say I multiply this guy with 10. Okay. So now what I'm going to get, guys, we know that math.random was going to return a number between 0 and 1, right? A decimal. So the moment you multiply it with 10, that decimal is going to shift, right? So basically, abhi ke liye, this must have returned 0.163. Multiplying it by 10 made it 1.63, right? Similarly, if you multiply this by 100, you get a 2-digit number, right? Or if I keep doing this, I'm getting random values between 0 and 100. Why is that happening, guys? Dhyan se samajhna. Math.random, I'll type it here. Gives values between 0 and 1. Do you guys understand this? Can I write it like this? Yes or no? Jaldi bolo, guys. Guys, please speak up. Okay. It gives values between 0 and 1. If I multiply this whole equation by 100, what is going to happen is 0 star 100 is 0. Random 100 is less than 100. It becomes like this, right? It becomes like this, isn't it? So basically, what the only point that I'm trying to make is, जब आप math.random को 100 से multiply करोगे, guys, what is going to happen? It's going to give a number between 0 and 100. Correct? Am I right? Right? Now, what you had to do is आपको एक whole number चाहिए था, but this guy is going to return you a decimal number. Let's understand this. This is going to give a decimal number. How can I make this decimal number into just a number? Anyone? Floor is one option, round is one option, trunk is another option. कुछ भी कर दो यार. Let's just use floor. Does this not work? So in my function, I'll just take this function, okay? And in here, if I had said math.random star 100, now this does not work. Why? because हमें अभी this is not factoring in a or b का value, right? Correct, guys? What we need to do is factor in the values of a and b, isn't it? Right? So what essentially I'm saying is we are going to have math dot random multiplied by b minus a, right? B minus a, right? So let's say b was 50. Let's say b was 50 and a was 45, right? Then what we need to do is just understand it like this. What is the difference between them? 40. What is 50 minus 45? 5, right? So, and we know that math.random gives us a value between 0 and 1. So math.random multiplied by 5 is going to give us a value between 0 and 5, not 1 and 5, 0 and 5, right? Isme, if I add a, which was the starting value, what we are going to get, guys? We are going to get 45, which was a, plus a random number between 0 and 5. If in the case when a and b were 45 and 50, right? The floor of that is our answer. Just run this. Done. So now get random number. Let's say 36 and 42. Is 36 this time? Is 40 this time? 36 again, 40 again, 38, 41. Is this clear to everyone? अभी बताता हूँ शुभम दोबारा. Important concept, guys, data structures and algorithms. अभी बताता हूँ मयंक 2 मिनट खुद से सोचो प्लीज. गाइस 2 मिनट दिमाग लगाओ यार. रबिया, मयंक दिमाग लगाओ 2 मिनट. अजय, just think everyone, just think. नहीं किरण, कंफ्यूजिंग क्या है इसमें? आप सोच नहीं सकते इतना सिंपल. प्लीज think about it. Take 1 minute and think about it. Guys, I am not kidding. I want you to put 1 minute and think about what I have written here. This is extremely important. Question from DSA. Think about this. तरुण 2 मिनट तो सोचो यार. No, Amit. It's just a choice. Clear हो गया जरूदीन? Perfect. Amazing, Deepak. Very nice, शुभम. मजा आ गया. शुभम, सबको समझाओगे? क्योंकि है b माइनस है और इसमें प्लस है, क्यों क्या है? Shubham, will you explain it to everyone if I unmute you? Okay, no problem. Anyone else? Azruddin, Deepak? Amit, आपको समझ में आ गया? Okay, दीपक से कभी नहीं सुना. दीपक बोलेगा आज. Azruddin, next time आप. दीपक, go ahead. सबको समझाओ.
Okay, sir. Hello.
Hi, Deepak.
Hi, sir. Sir, if I take one example and one equal to a equal to 1 and b equal to 100. If 100
नहीं तो थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स समझाओ, मतलब बीच में समझाओ कुछ. 36 से 92 ऐसा कुछ बोलो.
Okay. Sir, let's example 44 and 50.
So what Deepak is saying is E was 44 and B was, let's say, 56. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, if I generate random number between 0 to 1.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And b minus a if b minus a, then
दीपक आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी।
सर मैं कह रहा हूँ b minus a करेंगे तो 12 आएगा।
ठीक है, b minus a is 12, good.
Yes sir, and then plus a 44.
नहीं तो इसका क्या करें पहले, अभी ये 12 आ गया, what to do with this?
सर इसका सर ये करते हैं, क्या कहते हैं, हम मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे रैंडम वैल्यू के साथ, तो वैल्यू 12 से अधिक नहीं होगी।
Correct. So guys, what Deepak is saying is, if I put it in simple words, Deepak is saying if you multiply it by math.random, right? We know that math.random is going to return a value between 0 and 1, right? So when 12 is multiplied by some value which is between 0 and 1, what are you going to get? You're going to get a decimal value between 0 and 12. It will always be less than 12, right? Everyone?
Yes sir.
ठीक है, अब क्या करना था दीपक फिर?
सर एंड देन ऐड 1।
देन ऐड 1 क्यों?
सर बिकॉज हमें 44 से नीचे नहीं आना है।
अरे तो ऐड 1 थोड़ी ना करेंगे सर, ऐड 44 करेंगे ना।
ऐड ए करना, सॉरी सर, ऐड ए नॉट अ 1।
now what is happening is we are getting a value between 0 and 12, right? If we add it to the lower limit, which was a, which was 44, you are always going to get a number which is greater than 44 and less than kya, Deepak?
Less than 56.
Correct. So have we or have we not generated a random number between 44 and 56? Sub yes bolo guys, come on. Right? So we have, what we've achieved is we are generating a number between 44 and 56. Now we know that this thing is going to be a decimal value. उस decimal को हटाने के लिए हमने क्या किया दीपक?
सर डेसिमल को हमने हटाने के लिए मल्टीप्लाई किया और साथ में ऐड भी किया कुछ चीजों को।
नहीं, हमने डेसिमल हटाने के लिए math.floor का यूज किया, because this value we know is going to be a decimal. Correct?
Okay. जी सर।
Good one, Deepak. Keep it up.
सर।
So now you have created a function which does the job of getting random numbers between anything. Pratibha is saying 30 and 100. Let's do that for her. 94, 67, 79, 46, 33, 44, 58. ठीक है Pratibha? Works? अब तो clear है guys सबको? Ankit, what is your question? Question पूछो सीधा. Ankit, if you have a question, please ask it. This is an interview question, Vidyasagar. How do you generate a random number between A and B? Is an interview question. नहीं कर सकते अंकित. It does not take a parameter. डाल दोगे तो कोई problem नहीं है JavaScript, but it does not do anything. Guys, are we clear or not? Is it hard or is it easy? सबको आ गया ना guys? So Vinay Gandham is asking math.floor. Okay, so Vinay has a valid question. Correct. And Amit has given a valid answer. So I don't need to talk about it. Shall I move forward, guys? If everyone is okay with this, if you have a question, please ask. Say move if you are okay with me moving. Say move, everyone. I need more moves. Sir, can we take a higher than B? What does that mean, Pratibha? A और B के बीच में ही तो बनाओगे ना आप क्या करना चाहते हो? क्वेश्चन बताओ. Pratibha, question बताओ. I'm not getting your statement. Can we take a higher than B? Does not mean anything. Okay, moving forward, Pratibha, if you. So what will that accomplish, Pratibha? अगर आपने A को 100 कर दिया and B को 30 कर दिया, B minus A is going to be a negative number, right? So you will not get your desired value. Then you have to do A minus B, correct? Right? And now that you've mentioned this, a good way to ensure कि गलती ना हो ऐसी, you should give them better names instead of A and B. You should call it lower limit. Now we'll say upper limit minus lower limit plus upper limit, lower limit, right? So now the chances of making this mistake are very less. Or we can use an absolute function, but that does not make sense, right, Pradeep? Because what you are trying to achieve is you are trying to make a function which takes a lower limit and an upper limit. When you do math.floor, math.random into an upper value, you cannot have the control of in between, right? So let's say you want a value between 40 and let's say 100, right? And you do math.random into 100. You can never ensure that 40 is going to be the lower limit. There are going to be times when it's going to return you 31 or 19 or 16 or 9. How are you going to control that? The question was always, how do you get random number between two limits and not random numbers less than this number? What you are trying to answer for is random numbers less than a particular number. There is no upper limit in your case. Is it clear, Gandhamane? Good. Amit and Pradeep, for both of you, lower limit can also be set as a negative integer, right? You can also get numbers between negative limits, right? Upper limit minus lower limit. Okay, cool. I think it's clear. Yes, something like that. Just think about it. It's an easy one. I would just take some time to think about it. Nahi samajh mein aaya to puchna. Okay, I'm going to move forward now. Okay, so guys, we've learned a lot of math functions right now. Now, what we are going to move to is the date function, okay? Because dates are also very important when working with JavaScript, okay? So this was math. Now, as JavaScript gives math, JavaScript also gives something called as date, the date object. Okay. So what happens in the case of date, guys, right? The way date works as a constructor function. I will explain what constructor functions means later, but abhi ke liye sirf itna samajh lo that let's say if I had to create a date, and instead of unlike math dot something, you'll have to create it like this. You'll have to say new and you'll have to say date. Okay. Now D is a date. Okay. So it will have to be called like this. How this will work, I will explain in 2 or 3 classes more from now when I teach you constructor functions, but just learn this thing right now. New and the date class. So basically it's going to give you a date object. The date object is going to get returned like this, unlike math. Yes, it takes the system date of my computer, okay? Okay, so D is the date, okay? Now guys, there are multiple ways to create this date. Okay, let's just try to understand this. So when you're saying new date, right? Now this guy can take many values. Okay, let's say you wanted to create a date with year and month and all these things, right? I mean, it's up to you, yaar. Let use kar lo if you don't like const. I like const because the chances of errors go down drastically. Okay, so anyway, so I say, yes, the reason I use it is it reduces the chances of errors, right? So guys, typically when you write, when you get in the practice of writing into longer code bases, enterprise solutions and all these things, right? There you will want to limit the use of let, right? So this is the hierarchy. Const सबसे पहले, उसके बाद let, and never var, right? You should never have to use var. Okay. So I prefer const because it removes the chances of errors. So let's say I've created this D, then later I will not be able to say D is equal to something else. Okay. Anyway, I'll just move forward now. So const D1 is equal to new date. We can do this, or we could have done, what we could have done is we could have given it year, month, date, year, month, date, and hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds. So hours is, let's say, I don't know, 10. Minute was, let's say, 45. Seconds was, let's say, 30, and milliseconds was 0. Okay, when I press enter, this is what D1 gives me. It gives me June 21, 2021. Okay, now just to clarify your doubt, 05 in the world of JavaScript, months do not start from 01. Okay, so 01 month is not January. January is 00. So if you wanted to create a January date, instead of writing 05 here, you're going to say 0. And now if you look at D1, this is how you write January. 01 will be February. So dates are also 0 indexed in the world of JavaScript. Understood, guys? Yes. 11 means December, correct? So either if you want the date right now, what you can do is you can say new date, and it's going to give you the date right now, okay, or this current system date. If you want to have some older date, then you will have to specify it in this order: year, month, date, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. Okay, so let's say, okay, let's take an example like Nagendra Bapu said, 13 February in next year. So how are we going to write that? We will write that as 2023. Okay, for February, what will be the code? Nagendra 01, perfect. And we wanted 13th February, so what will be the date? 13th, awesome. Let's say I wanted 10:45 a.m. How do I write that? Hour is 10, minute is 45, 30 seconds, and let's say 100 milliseconds, which is not needed, so I will not write it. And this is how you write the date. Clear? Is everyone clear with this? How you write date in JavaScript? Okay, so we can either say new date, either we can specify these 7 values inside the date. Another very important one is millisecond time. Okay, so guys, I talked to you about the epoch timestamp, right? So in JavaScript, you have date.now also. So what is this time? This time is basically the milliseconds passed since January the 1st, 1990. Okay. Do you guys understand this? This time is the milliseconds which have been passed since 1990. It's a convention, Amit. There's no particular reason, right? So each time I'm doing this, number of milliseconds is increasing. Okay, so if I have this value with me, right, I can just copy this value and I can say new date, and I can pass this also here. right? So what it is giving you, January the 2nd, 2022, and the time, right? Got it? And let's say we just play around with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 4 as 3. So now it became some other time. If I make this as 1, time keeps reducing. That's how, right? So if I make this 6 as 4, I mean, now it's the 17th minute, right? This number tells you everything. Because see, it's a computation, right, Rahul? So if you know the milliseconds which have elapsed since a particular date, right? Then you can of course compute what will be the date and time and everything after that, right? So let's say if I wanted to add a day to it, right? So how many seconds does a day have? Can anyone tell me? How many seconds does a day have? Okay, so it has 24 hours, right? Into number of minutes, into number of seconds, which is 86400. Okay, so these are the seconds. For milliseconds, we can multiply this by 1000, right? If I copy this, right, and if I add this to this guy, so this guy, oops, I made some mistake. So I take this guy, I say plus this guy, right? So I get this value, and if I say new date, this guy, what is the date that I'm getting, guys? What is the date I'm getting, Tarun, Amit? Next day, right? So now we know it perfectly works. It works perfectly, right? And if we add 10 days to it, there is basically going to be one more 0 here. So I add one more 0, copy this, new date, January the 12th. Everyone understood the concept? So this is how you play with dates. Okay, this is date arithmetics. We learn more about this, a lot more about this, but right now just understand these basic concepts. Okay, guys. Now, when once you have the date, so what I'll do is I'll store it in a new variable in T. Okay, there is a concept of ISO strings, guys. ISO dates, which is very, very common in JavaScript, in the world of computer science, not just JavaScript. We store these type of dates in our databases and many, many things. Right? So T.ISO string, look at this string, what it is giving us. Can you guys read this? Okay, so let me help you reading it. This says the year is 2022, the month is January, and please notice that it's not 00 this time, it's 0, it's not 00 this time, this is 01, right? So this portion is the date, right? And then there is a T which shows the current time. And guys, please notice that this time is not the Indian time zone, okay? So it's not IST, it's GMT, right? So India runs on GMT plus 530. So what is IST? Indian Standard Time is GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, plus 5 hours and 30 minutes. So when you do this, you get the time, which looks like this, 10:54:51, which will be 5.5 hours before our current time. Did we understand, guys? Right? And this kind of date format is something which is which is used very, very often. Okay, so I can do this. I can say new date, I can pass it an ISO string, right? So the way to write an ISO string is year followed by date, followed by followed year, month, date. So date could be, let's say 22. Okay, and it's going to give me this time. And of course, it assumes that since I did not pass any of this, it will just assume that I've given 0, 0, 0, 0. That's why it's saying, hey, it's January the 22nd, 0530, because it's giving me an Indian Standard Time, because that's how my time zone is set. Is this clear? ISO string is clear to everyone? Okay, great. Awesome, guys. So we know how new date works. We know how we can pass different values to it. And we know what ISO string is, right? And what else? What else? Okay, now there are some more complex concepts. I think I'll stop here today because the next things that the more things that I want to discuss, guys, they will be slightly complex. They will be more date operations, right? So we'll just stop here for today. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me now. No, I'm fine, Rahul. Glad, Mank, you liked it. Yes, in case of ISO strings, 01 stands for January. So ISO strings are a standardized format, so to say. What is the 4 digit after the second? So Azruddin, those 4 digits or the 3 digits actually are basically the milliseconds, right? Because JavaScript has millisecond level accuracy. Perfect, man, good concept. Yes, in fact, you should try that out.